My name is Ethan Miller, and I was born in a quiet, forgotten corner of rural Montana, a place where winters were long, summers were short, and life moved slow enough to hear your own thoughts echo. My mother passed away when I was barely old enough to speak. And my father, he left before I could even form a memory of him. He disappeared somewhere into the world, never called, never wrote, never returned. People used to say, some folks just aren't built for responsibility. But as a child, all I knew was that he wasn't there. I was taken in by my mom's younger brother, Uncle Ray. He lived in a small wooden house at the edge of town with creaking floors, a broken porch light, and a roof that rattled every time the wind blew. He was a quiet man, the kind who spoke more with his eyes than with words. His hands were rough from years of carpentry, his boots always dusty, and his life simple. He wasn't the hugging type, and he wasn't the smiling type either. But he was the kind who showed up every single day. At first, I cried every night, for a mother I missed and for a father I never knew. My uncle would sit beside my small bed and place a cup of warm milk near me. He'd say, "You're safe here, kid, just rest." But he'd never pull me close. Neighbors told me I was lucky. Lucky that Uncle Ray stepped up. Lucky he didn't leave me behind like so many kids in tough situations. But inside, I felt alone, painfully alone. I learned fast to keep quiet, to hide tears under the thin blanket, and to eat slowly because food wasn't always plenty. Uncle Ray taught me how to carry firewood, how to light a stove, how to fill water buckets from the old pump in the yard. He never answered my questions about my parents. He would just tighten his jaw, lower his gaze, and shake his head. So eventually I stopped asking. School was miles away, and I walked every morning through gravel roads with torn sneakers and a backpack that had more patches than fabric. Other kids laughed at me. They called me trailer boy, thrift store kid, and sometimes shoved me behind the dumpsters. But I kept my head down and focused on the teacher's voice. Even at 7, I knew learning was the only thing that felt like a way out. I wasn't trying to be smarter than anyone. I was just trying to survive. Uncle Ray wasn't the "I'm proud of you" kind of guardian. He didn't celebrate my good grades or ask about my friends. But he worked from sunrise to sunset, fixing fences, repairing roofs, taking any job he could. And from him, I learned the value of sweat, effort, and showing up even when you're tired. Sometimes I'd see a heaviness in his eyes, a sadness I couldn't understand back then. But he always turned away before I could ask. At school, I made a few friends, not many, mostly kids like me from small homes and quiet families. After school, I'd rush to the library and check out books about heroes, explorers, and kids who turned their pain into strength. I promised myself, one day I'll leave this town. One day I'll build something bigger. One day I won't be forgotten. Years passed. Life stayed tough. Winters in Montana hit hard. Freezing winds slipped through the cracks of our house, and some nights we had to boil water just to warm the room. When I was 10, the responsibilities hit even harder. Uncle Ray grew more tired, more worn down. I carried more weight than a kid should. Wood chopping, cooking simple meals, cleaning the house, all before homework. School was the only place I felt seen. One teacher, Mrs. Turner, noticed how hard I tried. She stayed after school with me, helping me with reading and math. It was the first time anyone outside Uncle Ray made me feel like I was worth something. And slowly I started believing it too. But hunger stayed with me. Thin blankets stayed with me. Cold mornings and long walks stayed with me. I hid a piece of bread in my bag each day, not for sharing, just to survive. By 12, I was working at the local gas station after school, sweeping floors, taking out trash, filling shelves. Every coin I earned, I saved. Not for toys or snacks, but for a future I couldn't yet see but deeply believed in. I read more books about doctors, scientists, people who healed others and changed lives. And somewhere inside me, a dream started forming, quietly and stubbornly. I turned 13 in the middle of a cold spring, the kind where the wind slices through your clothes and the clouds hang low like they're watching you struggle. Life didn't magically get easier, it got heavier. Uncle Ray was getting older, his knees hurting more than before, his back stiff from years of hard work. So I stepped in where I could. I woke up before dawn to sweep the wood floors, chop kindling, and carry water from the old pump near the shed. I learned to cook basic meals, canned soup, fried potatoes, scrambled eggs, anything to keep us going. School became my escape and my battlefield at the same time. Kids noticed I worked at the gas station. Noticed my clothes weren't new. Noticed I didn't have lunch most days. They whispered. They stared. Some laughed. But I didn't fight back. I didn't talk back. I focused. Because somewhere inside, I knew I wasn't going to stay in that town forever. A teacher's help. One day after class, Mrs. Turner, my favorite teacher, asked me to stay. She looked at me the way people look when they see something hidden beneath the dust. She said, "Ethan, you have something special. You work harder than anyone I've ever taught." I didn't know what to say. No one had ever spoken to me like that. She offered to tutor me after school for free. Math, reading, science, anything I needed help with. Her belief in me lit something inside my chest. For the first time, I felt like someone saw me. Not the poor kid, not the quiet kid, but the kid who was trying. Her guidance pushed me to dream bigger. To imagine a life beyond Montana's dusty roads. Strength in silence. At home, Uncle Ray didn't say much, but I learned how he loved me. Through action. He fixed my backpack whenever the seams tore. He patched my shoes with glue and cloth. He placed an extra pancake on my plate without looking up. Sometimes I wished he'd just say, "I'm proud of you." But he never did. Still, I saw it in the small smile he tried to hide when I brought home good grades. I realized then that love isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet, steady, and rough around the edges. Harsh winters, hungry days, Montana winters were cruel. The house felt colder every year. Some nights I studied with gloves on because the stove couldn't keep up with the frost. Other nights I'd lie awake hearing the wind slam against the thin walls. I learned to go to school hungry and still answer every question. I learned to push through the ache in my stomach because books made me forget hunger. Knowledge became the only thing I could depend on. Working early, working hard. By 14, I was helping at the town marketplace after school. Carrying bags for old ladies. Loading boxes into trucks. Sweeping the aisles. Anything that earned me a few dollars. People in town started recognizing me. Hard-working kid. Polite boy. Ray's nephew who never complains. The coins I earned went to warm clothes for winter, school supplies, and sometimes a loaf of bread to take home. Every dollar felt like a step forward. A step away from the life I feared I'd get trapped in. Dreams growing bigger. I read more. Books about scientists, explorers, doctors, people who turned pain into purpose. I wrote in old notebooks I found at school, filling pages with dreams I couldn't say out loud. That's when I made a promise to myself. I will leave this town. I will become someone. I will help people the way no one helped me. I will build a life worth remembering. Age 15. A turning point. At 15, I started waking up early to run, not for sports, not for fun, but to build discipline. I knew if I wanted a future bigger than my past, I'd need strength, not just in my legs, but in my mind. I studied every night until my eyes burned. I worked every weekend until my back ached. At school, teachers noticed. Students whispered, "He's going somewhere. He's different." Slowly, I started believing them. Age 16, the first chance. One summer, a wealthy business owner from Seattle visited our town. He saw me working at the market. Sweaty, tired, but polite, respectful, hardworking. He asked, "How old are you, son?" 16, I said. "You thinking about college one day?" I nodded, even though the idea felt impossible. A week later, he returned. He spoke with Uncle Ray, and for the first time in my life, I heard the words, "We want to offer Ethan a scholarship to study in Seattle." My entire world paused. I felt my throat tighten, my eyes burn. Me? The kid with torn shoes? The kid who ate one meal a day? The kid who studied by candlelight? Uncle Ray looked at me with a mixture of pride and fear. Fear of letting me go, and pride that I was ready. He helped me pack. 2 shirts, a jacket, and a pair of jeans. Before I left, he put a hand on my shoulder, something he almost never did, and whispered, "Make your life bigger than mine, kid. Don't look back." There were tears in his eyes, the kind he tried to hide. And then I left the only home I ever knew. The next morning, the sun barely rose over the neighborhood when Ethan stepped outside. The air was cold, the kind of cold that wakes up your soul before it wakes up your body. He didn't tell anyone, not even himself clearly. But today, something inside him was different. He wasn't running from life. He wasn't chasing motivation videos. He wasn't looking for the perfect moment anymore. Today felt like the kind of day where a person quietly says, "I'm done living the same year over and over." 301, the walk that started everything. Ethan started walking. No music, no phone, no distractions. Just footsteps. Welcome to another reel. He thought about every promise he broke to himself. Every dream he postponed. Every morning he woke up saying, "Tomorrow I'll start." And every night he slept knowing he wouldn't. But for the first time ever, he didn't feel regret. He felt responsibility. There's a difference. Regret looks backward. Responsibility looks forward. 307, a conversation with himself. He reached a small park near the highway. Empty benches. Empty field. Empty sky. He sat down, leaned forward, and whispered to himself like a man finally tired of surviving. If I don't fix my life, nobody will. Not his friends. Not his family. Not luck. Not the universe. That was the moment he realized something that every successful American learns at some point. Your life changes the day you decide. You're tired of your own excuses. 314, the flashback that hit hard. As he sat there, an unexpected memory came back. A childhood moment he hadn't thought about in years. He remembered being 12, sitting in his old bedroom in Chicago, writing a list of things he wanted to become. I want to be confident. I want to help people. I want to make my family proud. I want to be someone who doesn't quit. He stared at that memory. That kid had dreams. But the adult version of him had drifted. And for the first time in years, Ethan felt the weight of that broken promise. Not in a painful way, but in a motivating way. He wasn't angry. He was awake. 320, small steps are still steps. He stood up slowly and didn't run home. Didn't rush. He walked. Because change doesn't begin with a dramatic moment. It begins with a simple decision. I'm going to do one small thing today, better than yesterday. No big goals. No giant plans. Just one step. The kind of step that looks small but changes everything once it becomes a habit. 327, the return home. But inside him, everything had. When he finally reached his house, nothing outside had changed. He didn't announce anything. He didn't post anything. He didn't tell a single soul. Because real change doesn't require an audience. It requires commitment. He opened the door, took a deep breath, and quietly said to himself, "This is day one, and this time, I'm not quitting. And just like that, he didn't pick complicated goals. He picked winnable goals. Because early victories matter more than big dreams. They build confidence, momentum, identity. 4:14. Cleaning the room that reflected his mind. He looked around his room. Clothes on the chair. Unfinished cups on the desk. A pile of "I'll fix it tomorrow" scattered everywhere. That room wasn't messy because he was lazy. It was messy because his mind was messy. So he started cleaning. Not fast. Not dramatic. Just steady. Every item he picked up felt like a piece of his old life being lifted away. By the time he finished, the room looked new. But more importantly, he felt new. 4:21, a book and a breakthrough. Next, he sat on his bed with a book. Not a motivational book. Not a self-help classic. Just a simple book he promised himself he would finish one day. The first page was slow. The second page was easier. By the seventh page, he wasn't reading to improve his life. He was reading because he enjoyed the quiet for the first time in years. 4:29, the walk into a better version of himself. Evening came. And with it, a calm breeze drifting through the neighborhood. Ethan put on his shoes and stepped outside again. But this time, he wasn't escaping life. He was training for it. He walked slow. He walked steady. And with every step, he whispered, "I can do better. Not someday, but today." 4:37, the night that felt different. When he returned home, he wasn't proud because the tasks were big. He was proud because he finally kept his word. Not to others. To himself. And that's the moment every transformation truly begins. He looked in the mirror before sleeping and said softly, "If I can win today, I can win tomorrow." The next day, Ethan's alarm rang at 6 a.m. But this time, it didn't feel inspiring. It felt heavy. The kind of morning where your body wants to stay in bed, your mind argues with you, and the world feels like it's still half asleep. This was the moment that decides a person's future. Not the excited first day, but the second day when motivation fades and discipline is all you have left. 5:01, the first temptation to quit. Ethan stared at the ceiling. One thought tried to pull him back. It's okay, skip today. But another voice inside him, a quieter, more mature voice, whispered, "Skipping today is how you became the old you." That hit him hard. Because deep down he knew the truth. He wasn't fighting tiredness. He was fighting his old self. 5:06, the agreement with the mirror. He dragged himself to the bathroom and washed his face. Cold water. Sharp breath. Awake. He looked into the mirror and said, "I don't need to feel ready. I just need to show up." Not a speech. Not a motivation line. Just a simple promise. 5:12, the new routine begins. Ethan went to his desk with a cup of black coffee. No sugar. No distractions. He opened his notebook from yesterday. 3 tasks were checked. All done. For the first time in years. Underneath, he wrote, Day 2, make my bed. Exercise for 10 minutes. Write 1 page of thoughts, not big goals. Just growth. 5:18, the small victory that matters. He made his bed. A simple act, but powerful. Most people don't realize this. But making your bed in the morning is not about neatness. It's about identity. It says, I control something in my life. And that feeling stayed with him. 5:24, the workout that almost broke him. He played a simple 10-minute beginner workout on his phone. Push-ups, squats, crunches. Nothing advanced. But halfway through, his arms burned, his legs shook, and his chest felt tight. He wanted to quit. But he whispered through clenched teeth, "If I quit now, I teach myself quitting is okay." So he finished the last 15 seconds with everything he had. It wasn't perfect, but it was done. And that's what mattered. 5:32, writing the truth. He sat down with his notebook and wrote. Not inspirational lines. Not goals. Just the truth. He wrote about why he lost himself. Why he wasted years. Why this time had to be different. He didn't sugarcoat anything. He didn't lie to himself. For the first time, he faced his life honestly. And honesty is where real growth begins. 5:40, a quiet pride. At the end of the morning, Ethan felt something unusual. Quiet pride. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just a small, steady flame inside him. The flame of someone finally moving forward. Before leaving his room, he whispered, "If I can beat the morning, I can beat the day." By late afternoon, Ethan was feeling confident. Not perfect. Not transformed. Just better. But life has a way of testing you, right when you start standing up straight again. And that test arrived sooner than he expected. 6:01, the call that shook him. His phone buzzed. It was his friend Mark. The kind of friend who never grows, never changes, and never lets you change either. Mark spoke with the same careless tone he always had. "Bro, we're going out tonight. Same place as always. Come through. Don't be boring." Ethan froze. Because this was the trap he always fell into. The same nights. The same crowd. The same empty conversations. The same habits that kept him stuck. He knew if he said yes, he'd wake up tomorrow, right back at day zero. 6:06, the battle in his chest. His heart raced. On one side, the new Ethan. Disciplined, focused, trying to build a better life. On the other side, the old Ethan. Comfortable, predictable, familiar. Change is never hard because of the future. It's hard because of your past. He stared at his phone, thumb hovering over the keyboard. Should I go? He thought. It's just one night. It won't ruin everything. It's not a big deal. But then he remembered the walk in part 3. The promise. The mirror. The notebook. He couldn't lose all that in one evening. 6:12. The answer that surprised even him. He typed slowly. Can't tonight. Got things to work on. Simple. Clear. Honest. Mark replied instantly. Work on what? Come on, man, stop acting different. Ethan felt something heavy. And something freeing. At the same time, he realized people don't fear your change. They fear losing who you used to be. But he knew he couldn't live for other people anymore. He put the phone face down and walked away. 6:18, the loneliness that everyone faces. That evening, the house felt quieter than usual. No notifications. No calls. No one cheering him on. The beginning of a journey is always lonely. Because when you start improving your life, you lose people who prefer the older, weaker version of you. Ethan felt that loneliness. It was real. It was sharp. But it was also a sign he was heading somewhere new. 6:24, the breakthrough moment. He went back to his notebook and wrote, "Saying no is also discipline." He read that line again, and again, and then something powerful happened. He didn't feel guilty. He didn't feel bad. He felt proud. Because this was the first time he didn't let the world pull him back. Tonight wasn't about missing out. Tonight was about leveling up. 6:31, the reward of staying home. Instead of going out, he made tea, sat near the window, and opened his book. It was quiet, peaceful, grown up. For the first time, he felt like a man in control, not a man controlled by his environment. And sitting there, he realized something essential. The hardest part of self-growth is not waking up early. It's letting go of the people and habits that kept you asleep. 6:38, the night ends with strength. Before sleeping, Ethan whispered, "If I can say no today, I can say yes to the right things tomorrow." He didn't win against the world. He won against himself. And that victory matters most. The next morning, Ethan woke up earlier than usual. He didn't plan it. He didn't force it. His body simply followed the discipline he was building. But that day, he wasn't going to fight laziness, or old habits, or distractions. Today, he was going to face something much deeper. His fear of failure. 7:01, the dream he avoided for years. Ethan had always wanted to start something of his own. A small business. A project. A skill. A dream. But every time he thought about it, fear stopped him. What if I fail? What if I'm not good enough? What if people laugh? What if I start and fall apart again? So he avoided it. For years. But now, he wasn't the same man who made excuses. He pulled out his notebook and turned to a clean page. At the top, he wrote, "The dream I've been afraid to chase." And for the first time ever, he let himself write, honestly. 7:07, the real reason he was stuck. Ethan wrote, "I'm not afraid of failing. I'm afraid of trying." That truth hit him like a punch. Because deep down, failure wasn't the real enemy. Expectations were. He realized something powerful. Doing nothing feels safe. Until you realize it's the most dangerous thing you can do. 7:13, the first step toward his dream. He made a simple plan. Spend 30 minutes researching. Learn from people doing the same thing. Write down what he needs. Start small. Start quietly. Start without telling anyone. He didn't want applause. He didn't need approval. All he needed was progress. He opened his laptop and typed the first search. And just like that, the dream he feared for years finally had its first breath. 7:20, the frustration phase. Research wasn't easy. There were too many videos. Too much information. Too many steps. Too many choices. At one point, Ethan leaned back and said, "This is hard." And then he caught himself. Not, "I can't do this." Not, "This is impossible." Just, "This is hard." And that was okay. Because every real dream starts as a confusion. No one starts knowing everything. No one starts perfect. The important part is starting. 7:27. The discipline that separates dreamers from doers. Ethan set a timer for 30 minutes. No phone. No distractions. No checking messages. Just focused work. At first, the minutes crawled. But as he got into the flow, time started moving faster. When the timer ended, he wasn't done, but he had begun. And sometimes, beginning is the bravest thing you can do. 7:34, the small achievement that mattered big. He wrote down everything he learned. A small list. Nothing dramatic. But it was more progress than he had made in years. He felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Possibility. Not hope. Not excitement. Possibility. The idea that maybe, just maybe, his life didn't have to stay the same. 7:41, the moment of reflection. Before closing his notebook, he wrote, "The old me avoided this. The new me embraces it." And when he wrote that, he felt a shift inside. A shift from I dream to I build. A shift from I'm scared to I'm trying. A shift from I'll do it someday to I'm starting now. 7:48, ending the day strong. Ethan walked to the window, looked at the sky, and smiled softly. He didn't need results today. He didn't need success today. He just needed courage. And he had it. Before sleeping that night, he whispered, "The dream no longer scares me. Not starting does." When Ethan arrived in Seattle, the city hit him like a storm. Tall buildings, crowds of strangers, cars honking, people rushing past him. He had grown up in a quiet town where everyone knew your name. Here he felt invisible. 8:01, feeling small in a big world. The first week was the hardest. Classrooms were huge. Teachers expected knowledge he didn't have. Students wore clean shoes, backpacks, and a confidence that made him feel like an outsider. Lunchroom tables were crowded with laughter and conversation. He sat alone, careful to avoid attention. But instead of giving up, Ethan reminded himself, "I survived Montana winters. I survived hunger. I can survive this." 8:07, the first friend. One day, a girl named Lily noticed him struggling with his notebook. She quietly came over and said, "Do you want some help?" It was simple. No judgment. No pity. Ethan realized people in the city weren't all indifferent. That small act of kindness changed everything. Some just needed to notice you. He started sitting with her during lunch. She introduced him to a few classmates who were patient and helpful. 8:14, the overwhelming homework. Homework in Seattle was nothing like his old school. Complex assignments. Multiple subjects at once. Deadlines that seemed impossible. At first, he fell behind. The other students seemed to understand everything instantly, and he questioned if he belonged. Then he remembered Uncle Ray. Work from dawn to dusk, never complain, endure. He realized that knowledge and effort were tools. Hard work could make him equal to anyone, even here. 8:21, part-time jobs and survival. Ethan needed money to survive in the city. He got a part-time job delivering groceries after school. Balancing school and work was exhausting. There were nights he studied by candlelight in a cramped dorm room. There were mornings he ran to class with his breakfast in hand. He remembered the cold Montana nights, the hunger, the long walks to school. He reminded himself that those hardships had prepared him for this. 8:27, earning recognition. Slowly, his teachers noticed his determination. Miss Harper praised his essays. Mr. Lopez acknowledged his science projects. Competitions began to invite him. Ethan realized that consistent effort creates visibility. It didn't matter that he started late or behind. What mattered was never stopping. 8:34, learning to believe. One night, after finishing both homework and his delivery route, Ethan looked at the city skyline from his dorm window. He felt exhausted, but also capable. He realized that he didn't just want to survive in Seattle. He wanted to thrive. And he was beginning to see a truth that would carry him forward. Talent can open a door, but discipline and persistence keep it open. 8:41, keeping the promise to Uncle Ray. Every night, Ethan called Uncle Ray. He told him about school, work, and small victories. Uncle Ray never said much, but Ethan could hear pride in his quiet voice. Those calls reminded him why he was here. Not for himself alone, but to honor those who believed in him. And for the first time, Ethan felt a deep, steady confidence that he could create a life bigger than he had ever imagined. Ethan closed his notebook and whispered to himself, "I'm not just surviving anymore. I'm building. Step by step. Day by day. No shortcuts. No excuses." By his second year in Seattle, Ethan had learned one key truth. Life rewards those who refuse to stop, even when it's hard. School was tougher than ever. Assignments piled up. Exams were relentless. Part-time jobs continued to demand energy. But Ethan had changed. He wasn't the boy who cried alone at home. He was a young man with purpose. 901, mentors who saw him. Some teachers noticed Ethan's effort. They didn't just give grades, they gave guidance. Ms. Harper, the English teacher, encouraged him to write essays for competitions. Dr. Reynolds, the biology professor, invited him to join a small research group. Ethan realized that talent alone wasn't enough. Connection, persistence, and discipline amplified talent. 907, the part-time jobs that built strength. Ethan balanced school and work. Early mornings, late nights, exhaustion that made most quit. He delivered groceries. Worked in cafes. Helped with tutoring younger students. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't easy. But every dollar earned was a lesson in responsibility, and every task completed was a step toward independence. 914, finding small wins. Ethan started keeping a journal of daily victories. Finished all homework before 10 p.m. Wrote 3 pages for science project. Walked 3 miles instead of sitting idle. Small wins added up. And each one built a foundation of confidence that couldn't be shaken by setbacks. 921, the loneliness of progress. As he improved, Ethan noticed something difficult. Some old friends drifted away. Some people couldn't relate to his new focus. It was lonely at times. But he reminded himself, growth often isolates you temporarily, but it prepares you for greatness. He stopped seeking approval. Instead, he measured himself by effort and results. 927, excelling academically. Slowly, his hard work paid off. Top grades in exams, recognition in competitions, invitations to mentorship programs. Ethan realized something profound. Consistency beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. Every night he reflected, "I'm no longer surviving, I'm learning to thrive." 934, paying homage to Uncle Ray. Every month he sent money home. Small gifts, groceries, anything to ease his uncle's struggle. Uncle Ray never asked for anything. But Ethan felt a deep gratitude that fueled his persistence. He often thought, every step I take forward is because of the silent strength of the man who raised me. 941, preparing for the big leap. At age 19, Ethan knew it was time to dream bigger. Medical school. Helping children. A life of purpose, not just survival. He researched scholarships, prepared applications, and built his portfolio. He reached out to mentors and volunteers in clinics. every sacrifice intentional. Every step was deliberate. Ethan was no longer reacting to life. He was shaping it. One night, sitting at his desk, exhausted but determined, Ethan whispered to himself, I survived the small town. I survived the city's chaos. Now, I survived to create. Ethan's 20s arrived with both promise and pressure. He had survived the cold streets of his hometown, the loneliness of the city, and the harsh reality of juggling school and work. But now the challenges were bigger, the stakes were higher. This was no longer just about proving himself. It was about creating a life that mattered. 1001, the medical school challenge. Medical school was a battlefield. Ethan felt the weight of expectations the moment he stepped inside the lecture hall. Hours of lectures that never seemed to end. Labs that required precision he had never practiced before. Exams that felt impossible, crushing the unprepared. His first week, he almost gave up. Sleep deprivation, stress, and self-doubt gnawed at him. For a moment, he questioned if he had enough strength to continue. But then he remembered Uncle Ray, the man who raised him with silent love and relentless work. He remembered the boy he had been. Hungry, lonely, struggling, and refusing to quit. And with that memory, he pushed forward. 1010. Living on minimal sleep and maximum determination, Ethan's daily routine became a test of endurance. Wake up at 5:30 a.m., study for 2 hours before class, attend lectures and labs from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., part-time clinic shifts until 9 p.m., return home, study again by candlelight, and sleep barely 4 to 5 hours. Every day, he reminded himself, exhaustion is temporary, dreams are permanent. Even when classmates mocked his worn shoes or his tired appearance, he kept moving. Every insult, every sideways glance, every tiny setback became fuel. 1018. Mentorship and small victories. Slowly, his persistence started to pay off. Professors noticed him. Seniors offered guidance. Patients at the clinic appreciated his care. Ethan discovered a profound truth. Competence breeds confidence. The more he learned, the more capable he felt. The more capable he felt, the more his world began to shift. 1025. The emotional weight of responsibility. There were nights when he called Uncle Ray. Every call reminded him why he endured so much. To honor the sacrifices of the man who had given him a chance at life. He also began thinking about other children. Those small towns, lonely streets, empty homes. He realized his future wasn't just about him anymore. It was about giving hope, guidance, and care to those who had none. It was responsibility. And responsibility was heavier than any exam. 1034. Graduation and triumph. After years of relentless study, fatigue, and sacrifice, the day finally came. Graduation. Ethan walked across the stage, hooded and in gown, heart pounding. He thought of every cold winter, every empty plate, every tear, every moment he had almost quit. He scanned the crowd and saw Uncle Ray standing quietly, proud, a single tear rolling down his cheek. It was the first time Ethan felt the weight of love expressed so fully in silence. At that moment, Ethan understood. Success isn't measured by applause, it's measured by honor and perseverance. 1044. The early days as a doctor. After graduation, Ethan began working in a small hospital near his hometown. The job was challenging. Overworked staff, limited resources, patients in desperate need, but Ethan thrived. He worked long hours, often skipping meals. He treated every patient as if they were family, remembering his own struggles as a child. Every smile, every recovery, every word of gratitude reminded him why he had fought so hard. 1052. Giving back to the children of his town. Ethan didn't stop at the hospital. He began programs for orphaned and underprivileged children. Free tutoring, medical awareness workshops, mentorship programs. He visited schools in small towns and told children his story. A story of hunger, struggle, and hope. He reminded them that beginnings do not define endings. That every child could rise, achieve, and make a difference. 10:59. Reflection and gratitude. Late at night, Ethan often sat quietly, thinking of his mother, who he never really knew, remembering his father, whose absence shaped him, honoring Uncle Ray, whose silent strength built him. Every step he took was shaped by gratitude and humility. Every patient he treated was a chance to honor life. Every child he inspired was proof that struggle can transform into power. 11:07. The man he became. Ethan, the boy who once cried alone in cold rooms, had become a doctor, a mentor, a role model, a man with purpose. He learned that life isn't about wealth or fame. It's about love, discipline, and impact. And he knew even the hardest beginnings can create the strongest legacies. Ethan whispered to himself before sleep, "I survived the impossible. I became more than I ever imagined. And now I give back." Because every struggle was a lesson, every tear a teacher, and every challenge a step to greatness. Ethan stood at the window of his small clinic, watching the sun rise over the town he once called home. The streets were familiar, yet different. He had changed, and so had the world around him. But some things remained the same. The cold winds of winter, the quiet nights, the sense of responsibility that had guided him since he was a boy. 11:01. Reflection on the journey. Ethan thought of the boy he once was. Hungry, lonely, and scared. Wishing for warmth, for love, for hope. Dreaming secretly in the dark corners of his room. He realized how far he had come. From that boy to a man who heals, teaches, and inspires. Every struggle, every tear, every cold night had shaped him. Every moment of patience and discipline had forged him into someone capable of making a real difference. 11:08. The silent love of Uncle Ray. He remembered Uncle Ray's quiet strength. The man who never said, "I'm proud," out loud, but whose hands and life had taught Ethan more than words ever could. Ethan now understood. Love doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers. And sometimes it shows itself through sacrifice and consistency. He sent a message to Uncle Ray. "Thank you. I'm who I am because of you." 11:15. Paying it forward. Ethan's clinic was small but full of hope. Orphans and underprivileged children came to him for care. Teenagers came to him for advice, mentorship, and encouragement. Families came seeking guidance, healing, and reassurance. He told them his story, never to boast, but to inspire. You can rise no matter where you start. You can achieve no matter what you've lost. Every struggle can become your strength. 11:23. The philosophy of his life. Ethan had learned the ultimate lesson. Life is not about waiting for opportunities. Life is about creating them. Strength comes from hardship, courage comes from persistence, and hope comes from action. He smiled at a small boy in the waiting room, hungry and quiet. He saw himself in him, and he knew his purpose was clear, to be the hand that lifts others. 11:30. Legacy of resilience. Ethan's story was no longer just his own. It was a message to every child, every orphan, every young person who had ever felt unseen or unheard. Your beginning does not define your ending. Your struggles are your foundation. Your hope is your power. And your effort is unstoppable if you never quit. 11:38. Closing reflection. Sitting quietly at night, Ethan whispered a promise to himself. I will keep giving. I will keep teaching. I will keep inspiring. Because I know how it feels to be alone, scared, and forgotten. And I also know what it feels like to rise. The boy who cried alone on cold nights was now a man who illuminates paths for others, showing that life can always be better. 11:45. The final message. Ethan looked at the stars outside, thinking of his mother, his father, and Uncle Ray. He knew this. Family isn't only blood. It's care, guidance, and sacrifice. Life's greatest strength comes from love, persistence, and hope. And with that, he closed his eyes, content, ready to continue the journey, knowing his story would inspire countless others.